At Lloydminster and District Co-op, membership matters more. Because being part of a co-op means you're connected to something bigger than yourself. From long-held legacy by those who built our communities, to people you call family, friends, and neighbors. When you're a Lloyd Co-op member, you're an owner in a local business that prides itself on purpose alongside profit. You earn cash back, you help support causes that matter most, and you're building a better way of life for the next generation. Membership matters more.
Local people. Local news and events. Local sports. Local matters. For all things Lloydminster and area, this is Live with Kurt Price.
Thanks for joining us and welcome into the new Lloydminster Nissan, now located on Highway 17 South with a full lot. The inventory is packed. I mean, we've got cars, trucks, and SUVs coming out the yin-yang here at the new Lloydminster Nissan, and that means selection. Take your pick on a beautiful Frontier if you're looking for an Armada, and whatever you're looking for, you can get into it for just $59 a month right now at the new Lloydminster Nissan. Highway 17 South in this big, bright, new beautiful building, and we would love to see you here as we get into the long weekend. It's your last chance to play the Beanbag Bonanza to win some bonus prizes with your already terrific purchase. Councilor Jonathan Torresan is here today, and we're going to be talking about why he has decided not to run in the next municipal election, which is coming up in November. We're also going to look back on his 8 years on City Council. Superior Water is proud to provide you with the purest drinking water possible, and I drink it because I like the taste, and I believe it is superior water. And as we head into the September long weekend, don't forget, ice for the Crown Royal at Superior Water is just $2 a bag. Plus, of course, you can fill up your big blue jug for just $3. There are two locations in Lloydminster. Visit them beside Sheepskin Loft on 57th Avenue, and you can also stop by their coin-operated location just by 7-Eleven on Highway 17 South. At Superior Water, water treatment is what they do, and they do it well. We're excited to announce that Meals in the Fields is back, returning with the first meal 1 week from today. So thank you to our incredible sponsors for coming back on board again this year. We have everybody back who was on again last year. So we want to welcome back Vical Agro and the new Lloydminster Nissan as big sponsors again this year. Also, the Gary Melka Foundation is back for a third year. When Gary passed away, he felt that Meals in the Fields was something that needed to continue. So he set aside some dollars to go towards Meals in the Fields each year. So each farm will get a little bit extra something through Meals in the Fields. We also want to thank the tent guys. Couldn't do it without them. Sobeys, Lloydminster, and of course we enjoy that delicious roast beef from Diamond 7 Meats, and it's going to be another great year. We're looking forward to coming out and seeing you. We'll get the poster up on our sponsor pages today and let you nominate a farmer, and nominations will also include a chance to win two, not one, but two $500 gift cards from Diamond 7 Meats. So as the combines sit today, I'm sure because of all that rain, some locations 2.5 inches from what I understand. It just poured last night around 12:30. We will be coming to see you next week when hopefully it dries up and get back out there. Another big chase, the ace draw last night at the Lloydminster exhibition. There was no ace drawn, so the jackpot begins this morning at $61,569, and the deck will drop down to 31 cards. You can purchase a ticket for just $10, 3 for $25, 8 for $50, or 20 for $100. You just stop out at the Lloydminster exhibition or go to lloydx.com. It's market day today at the Border City Farmers Market. That runs from 12 to 5 at the Service Sports Center. If you're looking for fresh garden produce, well, now's the time to get it. Also, fresh eggs, and you might want to check out the other vendors that are there because there is going to be a lot of vendors. And as we get into fall, there will be more and more vendors at the Border City Farmers Market. Lloydminster Bobcats will open up their preseason tomorrow night at home against Bonnyville. New head coach Jeff Wojwitka told us they have a good core of veterans returning and some great young players like defenseman Dylan Dietz from Calgary, who he says you'll want to watch play while you still can, because there's going to be a lot of eyes on Dylan Dietz this year.
Going to be, obviously won't be in this league long, right? Like, he won't be here, and those are the kind of players you want, because what's going to happen is it's not only, he's not only going to get on the radar, but he's going to bring other scouts and people into the building too, which is going to promote our other players, right? Because in order for players to get on the map, you need scouts in the building, you need talk about your program. So I think just him having there and just understanding that we don't care what your age is. If you're 20, 19, 18, 16, if you're not carrying them, doing what you need to do on a daily basis, we might, you're better off, if a 20 is not going to produce on, 95% of the nights and bring what he needs to bring, you're better off having a young guy. So that's kind of got to be the message. You need your 20s and your 19s to really be leaders and to bring these guys and establish a culture that we need to build here, and the young guys got to follow.
Puck drop tomorrow night at the Civic Center is 7 p.m. The Autism Spectrum Disorder Awareness Walk and Tie-Dye event is this Saturday at Bud Miller Park. It starts at 10 o'clock, and that's followed by a barbecue. Registration, $20 per walker, or register 6 people for $115. All proceeds go to Inclusion Lloydminster. Call Adina if you want more information, 306-830-1038. Recovery Week begins on Saturday. And Residents in Recovery is going to be hosting many activities and workshops and programs throughout the week. Now, Saturday is International Overdose Awareness Day, and Tyler Lorenz with Residents in Recovery told us they will honor the day and remember those who have been lost.
We are going to have a vigil like we have every year. This year, a vigil will start at 1 o'clock. It'll take place at the Parklet by the old furniture clinic. We'll have some speakers there. And then we'll have the lock hanging. We have a memorial wall with locks hung in our office, actually. We'll bring that over to the site. And then we'll have a walk, a remembrance walk to, we'll have all the crosses lined up along Highway 16 again this year. And we'll have a walk out there.
The Men's Shelter is holding their second annual golf tournament on Friday, September 6th. That's at Rolling Green Fairways. Deadline to register is tomorrow for your team of 4. It's $150, and to do so, go to lcascs.ca. I think I got that right. For more serious golfers, the Kid Scotty Golf Club is hosting a 2-man scramble with a maximum of 20 teams on Saturday, September 7th. The cost to enter is $200 a team with a shotgun start at 11 a.m. You can register and get more information by calling 780-522-2950. And Kid Scotty Golf Course had a little bit of a rough go of it this year. They've been broken into not once, but twice. BioClean Disaster Services is committed, certified, reliable, and they'll help you get your life back. BioClean Disaster Services is not only Lloydminster's local restoration company, they're also Lloydminster's largest restoration company. So for fire and flood disaster, call BioClean Disaster Services at 1-833-246-8326. Taking care of your property, taking care of your belongings is important. They're also going to put the priority on getting you and your family back to where you were before the disaster. 1-833-246-8326, BioClean Disaster Services. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk to Jonathan Torresan about his time on City Council.
More than just taxes at LNA CPA. Assurance, accounting, retirement planning, estate planning, business consulting, financial consulting, farm program support, and bookkeeping. But yes, there is always taxes. The team at LNA CPA is committed to helping you achieve your best results and will be there to assist you every step of the way. LNA CPA, with offices in Provost, Vermilion, and Lloydminster. How can you help support the oil and gas industry and jobs in Western Canada? The answer is closer than you think. Sell your scrap metals to PWM Steel. PWM sells scrap iron to Evraz, located in Regina. Evraz's #1 customer is the energy sector, building pipes and plates for the oil and gas industry. PWM Steel is your locally owned metal recycler and steel service center in the area. Plus, they're a strong supporter of the community. PWM Steel, your top steel supplier for Alberta and Saskatchewan for 40 years.
At Jason Arden Associates Cooperators, we're proud to be a top-rated local insurance company that offers flexible solutions and expert advice for all your insurance and investment needs. We'll work with you to tailor your insurance specific to your needs, and we offer investment advice that always puts you first. At Cooperators, one of our core values is to give back to the communities that we live in. Thanks to the support of our clients in Lloydminster and area, in 2023, Jason Arden Associates has donated $40,000 to local nonprofits, charities, students, athletes, and other special events. How does your insurance company support our community?
Have you checked out Wellings of Lloydminster yet? Call Darlene and have a walk through one of their gorgeous 1 or 2 bedroom villas. Some have a big open high ceiling, some have a lower ceiling, but they are absolutely gorgeous and they are pet friendly. And if you like to have a workbench in your garage, they're deep enough that you can do so as well. Remember, you are living your independent life. So if you're starting to get worried about taking care of the front yard when it's plus 40 or shoveling snow when it's minus 40, you won't be any more of that. And you also have the freedom to go away when you want to go away and not have to worry about big storms rolling through and basements flooded and things like that. You'll all be taken care of. Plus, you get to know your neighbors with a nice little community. In fact, they're building a beautiful clubhouse that will be the centerpiece for Wellings of Lloydminster. Going to be having another open house in September, so we're looking forward to that. But if you want to check it out, all you got to do is pick up the phone and call Darlene and I'll tell you, she will be ready for you and show you everything. Plus, I'm guessing you'll probably get some nice baking as well. 780-872-8537. That's Wellings of Lloydminster. Our guest today is Councillor Jonathan Torresan. And Jonathan has been on City Council for 8 years now, 2 terms.
Just about 8 years, yeah.
Just about 8 years. And he's also decided that he's not going to run again this year. So let's start there. Jonathan, tell us your decision, why you've decided you're not going to seek a 3rd term.
Sure. Before I start, I'd just like to say thank you to Kurt. I reached out to you when I kind of had a very good indication that I wasn't going to run for a 3rd term. And it was important to come on a show like this for me, just because I always have lots to say. And there's something about a different type of media interview where maybe one sentence of what you said makes its way into the article, and nothing wrong with that. But, you know, this longer format, I think, is fantastic for me, and I really appreciate this opportunity.
And I really appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
Yeah. So as far as why I don't intend to run for a 3rd term is, you know, there's a multifaceted kind of reasons, but, you know, the main one is the same kind of thing that you hear people say a lot, but, you know, I really mean it, and from my perspective, it's true. It's family first. So, you know, when I first started on City Council just about 8 years ago, and I was a young 28-year-old man who had a couple small kids. You know, evenings were, you know, still a challenge getting toddlers to bed and things like that. But it wasn't the wild, action-packed activities 7 nights a week that I have now. And even when I look at it, my youngest child, they weren't even born yet when I was on City Council. So they're 7, they'll be turning 8 here this year, or come early next year. And their entire life, I've been on City Council. Their dad has been busy their entire life. And that means that mom has to do most of the heavy lifting, right? So I love my wife, and I plan on staying with my wife for forever. We've been together almost 20 years, since we were 16. And I have no intention of making her do all the heavy lifting for longer, because it's not fair to her at this point in our life. So, you know, I'm looking forward to being more of the hands-on dad I always envisioned myself to be, and not relying on my wife or relying on my parents to pick kids up from activities or take them. So, that's number one is, how do you make a community great? I look at it as, well, you start at home and you make sure if you have children, that you make them great members of the community that are going to go on and do things for their community. So, that's kind of goal number one.
How many nights a week, how many days does it take you away from your family? Like, what is that time commitment, Jonathan?
Well, it varies for sure. Like, there's some weeks where it's like, it might only be 3 or 4 hours of phone calls and reading and different things that happen there. But you have some weeks where, well, you're gone for 4 or 5 days out of town. So, it varies. But your average week, I would say, is still about 10 to 12 hours worth of your time every single week. And especially when you get into the boards and the committees and things like that you do on top of it, a lot of them meet in the evenings, or if you're still working full time, which I was the entire time. When you're still working full time, if you have other things you need to get done from your full time work, you still have to get those things done. So it's not just, the time it takes out of a work day or the time it might take out of an evening. You still have to go back to work and do that 8 hours worth of stuff you ought to have gotten done. So, the number of times I've worked until midnight or 1 a.m, like I could not count. So like there is definitely, there's the work side of it where, if anyone is thinking about running, like the employer side of things is really important to make sure you've got them on side, not to mention the family side of making sure your whole family is bought in, because it's not my sacrifice only. It's my wife's sacrifice for me to be able to be on council. It's my children's sacrifice. And I get that you get paid, but it is still, as far as I see it, it is still a community service. And at a certain point, the hours in the day just don't add up to enough for you to be the husband, father, employee that you want to be.
You mentioned, what was the stress level like in those situations where you've got this, you've got these people depending on you, you've got your family depending on you, and you've got city council depending on you?
For sure. And there was different periods and different times over the past 8 years where the stress level felt elevated, for sure. Especially when there's a lot of unanswered questions, a lot of unknowns, COVID-19, that kind of time back in 2020 and 2021, definitely elevated stress because you're not worried only about keeping your own family safe, but you're worried about making sure you're following the rules and regulations to keep an entire community safe as much as you can, which is mostly, following the rules from the province. Don't get me wrong, we're not really making our own rules, but just making sure that you're doing that effectively in a way that isn't making problems worse. So yeah, it was very much a challenge, and the stresses that came with that from the varying opinions on that topic, definitely it put strains on relationships, all sorts of things, like whether that's personally or through council, or it was never an easy time. And if you're an employer at the time, knowing what to do as an employer to try and, so there was definitely challenges that came with that. And I don't remember what the question was now.
Well, about stress.
Yeah.
Definitely about stress.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But the other stress, I think, like, that comes with, and you mentioned it, is the differencing of opinions. Yeah. And there is social media is wide open now. There's, how much does social media and the negative feedback that comes on social media, because although there's some roses out there, there's way more piles of it to step in. So how much does social media play into that stress?
For sure, social media is a factor. I'm going to be honest, like, it's not just about having thick skin, which I think you do need a degree of thick skin. I think in cases, some people could be more respectful about the language that they use and things like that. But at the same time, it comes with the territory to a certain extent. And I consider myself pretty fortunate that I was relatively insulated from a lot of the noise. I don't spend as much time on social media as maybe other people in elected office might do, just because I have such a limited time span in a day of my ability to get the things done that I need to get done. So you get a degree of feedback on there. I found that it actually affected family members more than it affected me, because they would take those things more personally because they don't have the same kind of they just don't, they're not prepared for it in the same way that I am when they see something. So it is what it is. I think it's a great tool, and I think that over my 8 years, I've used it in many instances to try and give kind of what we'll call long-winded explanations to complex problems. But there are some things, even more recently, where, quite frankly, I think that local experts, like, I don't want to spend too much time on the issue, but if we're talking about the unhoused and things like that, the local experts, whether we're talking about Kagan at the men's shelter, Tyler Lorenz at Residence and Recovery, Becky Sheely at the Olive Tree, they're the ones who have the, straight to the source information on there. And they've provided it even on your show, or we've had Sergeant Nichols.
Yep, Brian Nichols was on it.
Giving you the straight information, but people choose to believe at the end of the day what they want to believe, right? So it's not about whether the information is true or accurate or not. That doesn't necessarily change how someone feels about it. And it's kind of a weird time to be alive in that sense, because there's algorithms out there. The more you click on a particular type of thing, the more information you're going to get that's kind of going to make you click on that article again so that you see the ads on there or whatever it is. So it is a weird time to be alive as far as people living in separate realities. But, that isn't so much the message I was trying to get out today. I was just, mostly, the family side of things is a challenge. The stress for sure comes with it. Social media, it's hard for your family sometimes to be able to deal with the things that they see on there. I know my dad, one time, someone said something terrible about me personally, and my dad responded in a comment. I was like, Dad, I'm going to delete this whole post now because he said something like, called somebody an idiot. And sorry, Dad, if you're watching this, but in hindsight, because that was like 7 years ago, he shouldn't have done that. And I deleted the post, and I talked to him about, Dad, I can handle people saying nasty things about me. Like, I don't need you to do that. And it's not good for you to, talk to people like that either. It just makes the problem worse. So
Is that the most frustrating part about being a city councilor, is the misinformation? Like, for me personally, I'll just tell you honestly, if Becky Sheely and Tyler and Kagan come on and they say to me, there are no buses dropping people off in Lloydminster, this has become a big thing. Brian Nichol comes on the show and says, there's no buses dropping people off. And then as soon as it's out there, that's not true, comes across. That's not true. They're not telling you the truth. I know for a fact there's people being dropped off. Like, no, secondhand that you're hearing conversations, and I don't doubt that there's some people being dropped off by a bus, but it's not a bus load of individuals. How frustrating is that it still remains out there? You can still try to clear things up as much as possible, but it's still there.
Yeah, I guess frustrating, I don't know if that's the word. It's just a matter of, at the end of the day, I understand where people are coming from, and it is not just necessarily that rumor. It's this idea that there's this problem, and it seems to be getting worse here and there, and the information about who's doing what about it just is not clear enough. Like, yeah, I get that rumor exists and is still being, thrown around to this day, even though those who are closest to it have said there's absolutely no way that that's happened, outside of the rare instance where one shelter will connect someone with a family member who lives somewhere else so that they don't have to be unhoused. That's the only time that, I've heard that something like that is true. But even then, it's that it's that fact that there's who's doing something about it, and I look at even us as a city. We can put information out there about how we had our how we have people in community and social services working with the different groups to ensure that the coordination of services is getting to the people who need it. So that would be working with Olive Tree, working with Residents in Recovery, working with Men's Shelter, working with Interval Home, anything like that, working with the outreach teams. So you could talk about how we have people in those positions, and then people on community safety who are ensuring that kind of on the bylaws side of things, and that and working with the RCMP in cases where that's necessary. If there's crime related issues, there's most definitely coordination going on, and working between social agencies and mental health and the city of Lloydminster. That's happening every day, and you can tell people that. But at the end of the day, if the problem is still there tomorrow, or if it comes up again tomorrow, they're going to say, well, yeah, you're doing something about it, but it's not working. And at the end of the day, as far as I know, I think that as the role of a municipal government, which is more so on the zoning side of things and ensuring coordination of these different social agencies, or providing a certain amount of funding and paying the RCMP contract, that's kind of where our responsibility is. If it's a question of the bigger picture housing, there's a municipal role in that, but that's a federal and provincial responsibility. If it's a mental health issue or addictions issue, those are provincial responsibilities. So, I think a lot of it lands on the city of Lloydminster's doorstep because that's where they see the problem happening, but it is a provincial issue. And I'm not trying to point fingers at any individual MLA, because I'm sure they're advocating for their community, but that doesn't mean you get all the resources you ask for. The same way we don't necessarily get all the resources we ask for from the next level. So I'm not pointing fingers at individual people, but it's just the system is not providing the resources needed to be able to treat that many people or to be able to kind of help them through things. So I get that people's frustrations will boil over and they'll say nasty things on social media. And there's some people whose, the way they live their normal lives is maybe changed because of some of the issues related to it. So, I feel for them. But at the same time, you can only give people so much information before they kind of just say, well, that doesn't, it doesn't fly with things that I believe already.
You're on council for 8 years. You start in 2016. In the middle, there's COVID. And then here we are in 2024. And I hear people saying that it's become really personal to be a politician these days. It has taken a personal turn. People take pot shots at you. You mentioned somebody coming after you 7 years ago, but people have said it's gotten worse. Do you find it's gotten worse?
So I hear about kind of how it's gotten worse at when we go to provincial or federal conferences, anything like that, because some of the topics we deal with is the harassment and bullying of local elected officials. And it does, when it does happen, it hits the hardest, I think, for the local ones because they're always in town. It's a little bit different for an MP or something like that when they're away, but don't get me wrong, it's not right in any scenario. It just maybe hits differently when you see the person every day. At the end of the day, that's never been a big problem for me. Like I mentioned I had to go back 7 years in my mind to kind of find it. Like if I was the mayor, oh my God, he takes a lot of heat and unfairly, and I don't think people, and he can handle it. But at the same time, there's a way to give constructive feedback, and there is a way where it could be potentially harassment or bullying. It is potentially a problem that's worse than ever, but I am fortunate that I've never felt that. I've never felt that personal attack, that I'm a bad person. Like no one's pointing me out and saying you're a bad man and you should feel shame. That hasn't happened for me. I don't know if that's the way I present myself. I don't know if that's the way I dress when I'm outside of sitting in council and I just don't realize it's the same person. I don't know what it is. I feel incredibly fortunate to have kind of avoided that side of it. But you know what? that's kind of it as far as, the things you can't control are the things that are tough about council. There's just, you're moving with the environment around you. You're working within the resources you're able to have. You're working within the resources the provinces give you. And whether they decide to cut those or whether they decide to fund something or not, like you work within those resources. And then at the end of the day, you do the best you can with what you've got. And hopefully at the end of it, you can be proud of the things that you did with the time that you had. And that's kind of where I'm at now. Like, I get that there's still challenges moving forward. And I think these are things that new candidates are going to have to, figure out more than I could on some of these issues, because we're doing all the things within our resources, but is there a way we can advocate for our community differently to be able to get more resources? I don't know. But I'm incredibly proud of the things that we were able to accomplish with the resources that we had.
Was there a particular reason that you ran for city council? Was there anything you wanted to accomplish before you when you originally stepped up and said, our city needs this, I want to prioritize this? Or what was the reason behind stepping up?
So I would say I had a very limited agenda walking in. And to be honest with you, when I hear about councillor candidates or mayoral candidates, things like that do have kind of more limited agendas, and it's more about making the community a better place to live, improving quality of life. If there's I'm going to stop X, Y, Z, I generally speaking think, well, why? What's your specific thing about it? And then I don't know, sometimes very specific agendas make me think that, or it doesn't make me think, it makes me more nervous. But my agenda moving into it was more so, the honest truth was, there was someone on social media back in the day who said that they were going to run for council, and they were the admin of some really big Facebook group, and I was like, oh man, this guy, I feel like if this guy's going to run, I should run so that, I can win instead of this person. And it wasn't the community asking me, it was somewhat, I thought I could do it. And then I talked to a handful of people, and then it started to build momentum. But it was something I was interested in doing. And bringing my skill set as a CPA into the picture, I thought, well, that would really help for decision making. We got some incredibly big challenges with this wastewater treatment plant. I feel like having, just someone with that knowledge at the decision making table, not necessarily, we still get expert advice from the admin side, but I just felt like it would be a useful tool. And at the end of the day, the public supported me in that first campaign, and not that we're counting votes or anything like that. I wouldn't do that. That's, you'd have to be pretty arrogant to do that. But I'm pretty sure I finished second to Ken Baker in that first election, which, to finish just behind Ken Baker out of the 6 that were elected, I was pretty proud of that. And then maybe in my second term, I got more than anybody else who was running. I don't remember for sure. It was close. Anyway.
I want to ask you, we're going to take a break, but I want to ask you if it was what you thought it was going to be. We'll address that when we come back here at the new Lloydminster Nissan with City Councillor Jonathan Torresan.
At CK McKean Roofing, they understand what it took to put that roof over your head for your family. With over 20 years of experience under their belt, they strive to show you that with their workmanship and their integrity. Not all roofing companies are created equal, and that's why CK McKean Roofing encourages you to focus on your most important investments, your home and your family. CK McKean Roofing. Roofers do it on top.
At Diamond 7 Meats, we work with local farm families to provide a high-quality product and a great selection for you. Try our mouth-watering smokies, pulled pork, roast beef, and more, made pure and natural with no additives or fillers. We offer custom processing, and our experienced team works for you to provide a selection of sausage, burgers, and jerkies made to your specifications. Take your grilling to the next level with a Yoder smoker. Complete the grilling experience with Canadian-made, award-winning line of House of Q barbecue sauces. We're locally owned and operated, and we look forward to seeing you today.
I'm Brian Zinchuk of PipelineOnline.ca. I used to be a pipeliner and I've spent the last 15 years reporting on energy in Saskatchewan. PipelineOnline.ca provides comprehensive coverage of light oil, heavy oil, lithium, helium, power production including coal, wind, solar, geothermal, natural gas, and nuclear. There's a lot happening in Saskatchewan's energy sector, and Pipeline Online is there for all of it. No one else comes even close.
Welcome back to the new Lloydminster Nissan. Our guest is Jonathan Torresan, and Jonathan has decided that he's not going to run after 8 years of representing the city on city council. And talking about what things were like before you went on council and why you decided to run for city council. Was it what you thought it would be, Jonathan? Was there any surprises coming your way?
No, it wasn't what I thought it would be in one sense. In another, it was. So I was one of these people who looked at it as a job that I was doing on behalf of the community, and I needed to be as informed and understood everything as well as I could before I got started. So I went on the city website and I read every bylaw and every agenda meeting for the past 2 or 3 years, and I was very well informed on what the issues were and where the challenges were. I had reviewed the financial statements several times to make sure that that I had a good understanding of where the position was at and the budgets and everything else, attended council meetings. So I was very well understood about that side of it. The part I didn't know, and people have a short memory about some of this stuff, but I didn't know kind of the organizational challenges that were going to exist as soon as we got elected, because it wasn't long after that that we as council didn't feel as though all the information we were getting was fulsome and accurate, and all these different challenges, I guess, that would have led to bringing in an outside party by the name of George Cuff, him doing a big report about many of the challenges that we had. We ended up releasing a city manager, getting an interim city manager, and eventually landing with Dion, who, I got to be honest, is probably best city manager in either province of Alberta or Saskatchewan, in my opinion. So if you're getting elected with an agenda to get rid of a city manager, you are going to get a downgrade. So if anyone listening is thinking about running because that's what they'd like to do, you are going to get a downgrade if you go with anyone else. But that's just my confidence in Dion Pollard. But no, so as far as what I thought I was getting into, I didn't know that there was going to be this kind of big HR shuffle kind of thing as far as the characters and people in the room, because, you know, as much as you've heard all the stuff going on before that, I was very much of the opinion, no, let's give people the benefit of the doubt. I don't know all the information because, you know, maybe even through reading all these things, I don't have the context of what's been going on. So, but it turned out to be a real thing, and we had to make some real changes. And to be honest with you, I'm incredibly proud of, and at the end of my first term, I remember coming to terms with, you know, what if you don't win when you run for re-election? And I was comfortable with the fact that, if nothing else, I was incredibly proud of the team at the executive level that the city of Lloydminster had built, and all of the people I had met who worked through the organization. Like, you know, you hear people say negative things about city workers or government workers in general. I can tell you without a doubt that city of Lloydminster is incredibly blessed with, you know, just a group of people that want to do good for their community and want to make it a better place to live, and understand that although not every role is visible and not every role is, you know, might feel important, every role is part of improving and increasing that quality of life and providing those services to residents in Lloydminster, and they're all really needed one way or another. So no, I didn't know what I was getting into to an extent, but you know what, when I ran my second term, I knew what I was getting, and I knew that if I didn't win, I could hang my hat on that alone, that we had built a really strong team, because that's something that can last for, you know, generations. If you can get the right people in the right spots and build the right culture and keep that going, that's something that will continue to pay off for a very long time. So, you know, I'm really proud of that, and really proud of some of the people I've been able to work with, and they've been fantastic.
Was there a project? Maybe I should take away the water treatment plant because I've already heard you mention the water treatment plant. But is there a project that stands out to you that you're really, really proud of? The city council of the last
There are
8
definitely
years?
there are definitely things that I have my fingerprints on, I would say, but it's one of those things where although I think some things absolutely can be more attributed to the position of a mayor or more attributed to the administrative staff, don't get me wrong, those things happen. City council I look at it as more of a team sport that recognizes individual effort. Because I'll talk about the wastewater treatment plant either way, even though I would attribute our mayor being an absolute dog to get that money for that wastewater treatment plant. He was on people all the time, calling them at every opportunity. Eventually, it's almost like they just give him money because they don't want to hear from him anymore because he is so persistent. Which, hey, that's a problem, a good problem to have if it's successful. But there's no question that I think all of council, and I can recall myself specifically in meetings, kind of doing that advocating piece and talking to ministers at other levels of government to try and convince them that, hey, yeah, this is a really good thing. And yes, we realize that we've put ourselves in a spot over a number of years that we're going to have to fix it. And we're doing the work back at home to make sure that we're going to overcome these challenges so that we're not going to run into this problem again with this wastewater treatment plant. And being that advocate, I think that is where some of the most important work goes. Because as a member of city council, you do work, but it's not like work. It's negotiating, it's persuading and things like that. So, some of that stuff I'm really proud of. When I look back at it, a lot of it comes from kind of the boards and agencies, different groups you work with, are some of the areas where you feel your impact the most. In my first term, I spent a few years on the library board back when we were still into the basement. And I look at that time as very much the basement of the Atrium Center. And I look at that time very much as setting the stage for being able to move out. So there was a lot of kind of tough conversations, I would say, that we would have as far as making sure that, we're putting a product out there that everyone's going to be proud of if we're going to spend the money on it, things like that. And just having those conversations, I would say, would be part of where I get my fingerprint on that particular file. I spent a significant amount of time negotiating with the County of Vermilion River. Eventually, we did go through the process and we did do the annexation. Before I had gotten there, let's say it was ongoing for the past 8 years, and I think that we sped up the process and got it accomplished, I think, within 3 or 4 years from that point. So that was one that, running for my second term, was not quite finished, that I wanted to see to completion. But I would say at that table, I definitely have my fingerprints all over, the annexation portion of it. So something I'm really proud of. The museum is another one where, we were challenged with this group of buildings that, it was actually the museum that started it. It's the one that started it. It needed a new HVAC system, $1.5 million. And I believe at the time it was Rick McDonald, our interim city manager, kind of said, okay, guys, have you guys had a proper building assessment done to this before? Because we've got it budgeted, but have you had a proper assessment done? And then we did and found out, no, we can't throw good money at this building. And then that led to an assessment of all of our facilities, which is where we ended up with the Civic Center being where it's at today, where, yes, we need to replace that one. So, some of that, I'll call it early learnings and changing of processes and changing the way we do things in that sense, is something that I would say, I have my fingerprints on and I'm proud of. The big one to me, and this is going to be of interest to no one. So, but it was the city's model. It was something I want to say I campaigned on. I talked about from a very early time of how do we fund the city of Lloydminster. Utilities pay for, so I was of the philosophy, utilities pay for utilities. growth pays for growth. Programs and services are paid by property taxes. And the whole reason behind that is you look at growth. Well, growth is kind of like it's a one-time thing. So growth should really only be paying for growth. It shouldn't be paying your bills on a monthly basis, because that's not income you can count on from year to year, which is the problem we walked into when we were first elected. So making your utility rate so that it's not higher on the utility side and subsidizing over here or subsidizing back and forth between your utilities. Keep all that straight. So your utilities, you can kind of say, like, there's some fixed things, there's some variable things, and this one will pay for that one over time. Keep them separate. And then all the other programs and services are property taxes. Those decisions are more, we'll say, political in nature. They are more, what do we want versus what do we need kind of thing that might be over there with the utility side of things. So trying to get that model as clean and as close to perfect as we can get. It'll always get tweaked and it'll always change a little bit, but it's something that I'm proud of, is that we've got a model that is, we'll say, sustainable in the long term if we continue to monitor it, keep an eye on it, all those other things. So that is boring, but it's one of the things that I think I'm most proud of.
I want to talk about something that might be a little boring in there, something that came up with Brian Nickel. And that is, like, he was telling us, if our police officers find that there's someone on the Alberta side that is suffering from a mental disorder and it's creating problems, they have to take them to St. Paul. If it's Saskatchewan, they can take them here to Lloydminster. Why can't we fix that, Jonathan? Like, you've talked about, this kind of stuff. It just seems like that's ridiculous. We've got a hospital right here. Why would we spend time driving them to? And there's got to be more than that. Those little things that come up between that divide Saskatchewan and Alberta. Why can't those be fixed?
Well, I look at it. And if I understand the question better, is if there's a mental health crisis, if you will, and someone needs emergency mental health help, my understanding is they go to St. Paul because they have a facility to be able to house them. If it's in Saskatchewan, they go to North Battleford.
Yes, North Battleford.
The issue is that we have a hospital in Lloydminster that has absolutely no mental health beds and no mental health wing, no nothing. So, this is something that's come up in terms of advocating to the province of Saskatchewan or to SHA or to AHS. Like, we've had meetings with all of them, and I've asked the question, which is, PA, let's say, has 10 beds in their hospital. Let's say Regina has 20. Let's say Swift Current has 8, whatever. All of them will have something. And then I ask them, is the number 0 appropriate for Lloydminster? So right now they are working on a community needs assessment as far as what the community needs in terms of health resources. I'm hoping it comes up with a number that says we need something. The one we did last time said we needed something. So it's one of those things where, I'm not going to put pressure on individual or place blame on any individual or anything like that. But as a system, from an advocacy point of view, Lloydminster does sometimes on items like that feel like we are the, the child through divorce that neither parent wants.
The redheaded stepchild.
I didn't want to say it. No, but that's it. Like, it just feels like mom and dad are getting a divorce and neither of them really want to pay for my stuff.
Is there anything that you look at and go, the city needs this? Like, you mentioned the needs assessment. You personally, coming from city council, we've got a new Synovus hub coming. I think a lot of people would be surprised you didn't mention that. But is there anything you look at and go, the city really needs this? I hope that the next council can address this.
Yeah, I think that there's lots of stuff, and the issue is, I guess, and I'm glad you mentioned the Synovus hub, because that is something that in some way will be finished and is kind of a relatively done deal that my fingerprints in a way will be on. It'll just be a year after I'm done on council. But, at the end of the day, you're going to be able to have events there that you could never have at the Civic Center. And, it's not just an arena, it is a true event center. So I'm really looking forward to it because I do like hockey. I got some kids in hockey, stuff like that. So ice time is good and important, sure. But it's the bigger picture of, well, what else can we do with it? And what else could we have here that is otherwise passing us by, that are opportunities? So I am excited about that. Your question was...
What do you think we need?
Oh, what do you think we need?
What do you hope council works on?
Yeah, well, I think what we need, and this is the boring part, is it's the background. We need to update all our master plans and get it worked into an asset management plan. So we're working on that now, and it is an ever-changing thing, but an asset management plan is essentially when you take a look at every piece of infrastructure, every pipe, every light pole, everything in your city, and you get a determination of its age and quality and timeline for replacement. You get a price on it, and then you get the list, and I mean the true list of here's the priority of the things we need to work on, because there's no question, like, local government is the easiest one for provinces to kind of cut the tap off to. Like, for whatever reason, it's like, well, they can raise property taxes. So, if you look at the amount of funding that's gone down from on the Alberta side, on the used to be MSI and is now called Local Government Fiscal Framework, I want to say on the capital side, it's dropped 30%. 30%. Like, it's not small change. Like, it's big money that it's gone down. And it'll start climbing again from now at this new, what we'll call floor. But still, like, that's where the pressure comes in on these things. So we do need to work, we do need to work smarter with how we're going to accomplish our goals and how we're going to do more with less over and over. And
So who would be responsible for that, Jonathan? Just like, did that change when the NDP government came in, or did that change when Daniel Smith was replaced?
I want to say it started under Kenny and got implemented under Daniel Smith. Like, kind of that would be accurate.
Have that reputation of cutting.
Yeah, and which is, it is what it is. But at the end of the day, there's one taxpayer, right? So if they cut the funding over here and taxes have to be raised over here, who raised the taxes? Unless we cut services. That's the other option. Like, city council, and we could always cut services. But there's not like a bunch of extra services that aren't the important quality of life things that people need. And everyone will have a different opinion on what's important to them. And the thing that makes Lloydminster great for one person might be a different thing for someone else. And there's no question that we have, tremendous quality of services. I just met a fellow the other day who just moved here from Barrie, Ontario, and I was like, oh, so what drove you to Lloyd? Did you have family over here? He's like, no, all my family's around there. And it's like, okay, yeah, well, what about Lloyd? What's so special? He's like, well, cost of living is phenomenal compared to where he was living, and the wages are way better than I was getting there, and there's lots of work to go around. And then he said that, the quality of the services in this size of city, he's like, he is blown away by how high the quality of the services are. So, that was one of those little things that happens every once in a while where you have a conversation, you feel good about, we're doing good work here, and I agree that the quality of the services relative to the price and everything is phenomenal, but it gets challenged when you get kind of handed that, we're not going to pay for this anymore. Or, another one is we provide RCMP services across the entire city of Lloydminster. The Alberta side, the Saskatchewan side, we provide RCMP services. We pay the bill. Back when the detachment was on the Saskatchewan side of the city, Alberta still paid the bill because we're providing services on the Alberta side. It's on the Alberta side now, the detachment. Saskatchewan does not pay a dime. And that's to the tune of about $500,000 a year. So it's things like that. And we've been working with them and trying to advocate for our position for many years. And And there's different things that we've thought about and tried to try and make that happen. But at the end of the day, those are still, that's $500,000, which is about 1.7% of taxes. So if your taxes are, automatically taxes in theory could go down 1.7% if they would pay their bill. But it's just things like that add up. You know what I mean?
So you mentioned, checking out the infrastructure, making sure that, when does this need to be replaced? Do you think if somebody ran on that, they could get elected based solely on what we see in Calgary right now?
Maybe.
Has it scared people enough, do you think, that, or if you were going to run again?
No,
would you pick a more sexy project?
If I was going to run again, I would continue to be myself like anybody else should. If the stuff that interests me and is important to me and I think are deal breakers we got to work on, that's the stuff I'll try and communicate to you, because when we come up against the wall later and there's challenges and it's this topic, then it's something we need to talk about. Like, there's no question that I want to see people who are running to just want to make it a better place to live and committed to the community and all those other things, and advocate where we can on the things that are beyond our control. That's the stuff I love. Like, that's the stuff I want to hear. Specific projects and stuff like that, I can speak to it because I have the experience and the knowledge, and I have the kind of in-depth kind of being at the table for it. But would I talk about it? Yeah, probably, if it came up in a conversation like this, 100%, because that stuff's important. And I don't know that the Calgary stuff, like, it definitely sucked for them for a long time, and enough people seeing that news. Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it is a sexy enough topic at this point as infrastructure, but I think we're in better shape than we've been before as far as a lot of that stuff goes. So, a lot of work's been done on the stormwater management system, that giant Lake K on the Saskatchewan side that caused a giant mountain of dirt. But yeah, like, it's stuff that we have put the money into the projects that need it, and we've prioritized them to the best of our abilities. The asset management system would just make that much more efficient to be able to do.
You mentioned this gentleman from Barrie moving out here and how much he likes it here and how he finds it like a great place to live.
Yeah.
You grew up here.
Yeah.
I moved in here. So do you find that this might be a strange question, but I think it's a legitimate question. Do you find that local people who grew up here are more negative towards the city?
No.
Than those who move in?
No, I don't. I don't think
I do.
I don't know.
I do. I find that if you grew up here, you're like, it's nothing great. It's, there's no mountains to look at, no water and everything, for sure. But, I just find it's more shocking for people who grew up here to find out that somebody from Ontario could move here and enjoy it.
No, I'm not shocked at all when I hear those things, because honestly, I believed it then, and I believe it now, and I'll continue believing it long after, is that, in terms of your opportunity to create quality of life and to make a life for yourself in a community like Lloydminster and to have high quality of life, I don't know if you can find anywhere else like it. And I'm not saying that, I don't have to say that anymore. I'm not trying to get reelected. I say that because I mean it. Not that I would say it because I have to, because I'm an honest guy. But at the end of the day, it really is like, if you want to go somewhere and you want to go on a trip, generally speaking, you are paid in the kind of the higher, like the overall, median income, all that stuff is higher than normal here, right? So people in theory have more disposable income. So if you're someone who values travel, you're 2 hours away from getting on an airplane, and hopefully we can get another air carrier back that can get you on one that'll take you to Calgary to take you anywhere else. But you could get on an airplane in 2 hours and go wherever you want, and you have the disposable income to be able to do that. People who live in Toronto can't do that. They don't have the disposable income after they've paid for their apartment. You know what I mean? So you might have lots of cool stuff to do, but can you afford to go to any of it? So, there's lots of ways to look at that. And there's nothing against Toronto, folks. You guys are all right, too. I've met lots of nice people from Toronto. But yeah, no, like I know lots of local people who have moved back to the community and have come back here to raise a family after they did some level of education, did some traveling, did some exploring, finding themselves. And that's the goal. That's what you want. I want to, like, if you are on council, your goal should be, I want to create a quality of life where my kids or the next generation will go off, find who they are, and decide, you know what, this place is so fantastic to live in, I want to move back to it.
Scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that we can find another carrier for the airport?
Honestly, it's a subject that I have very little knowledge. So I know that we were going through the process. We had gotten a grant from the Alberta government to be able to do kind of a study type of thing that was going to say, you know, what are the best times, where are the best locations, all that stuff. Really, sales document that should be coming out in the not too distant future that we can take to different carriers to try and sell them on it, or to do a request for tender or something like that. Or so there is opportunity there. And I think we've gotten, from what I've heard, maybe some interest, but I don't know who that was, and I have no memory. Okay. But I'm confident that there will be something. I don't know what it looks like or who it will be. But it is what it is. Like, that's just where we're at right now. But some of these things just take a little time. So I'm hopeful that we can get somebody else in there, because it was excellent for those who were able to use it regularly, and it's good for the airport, and it's good for the local economy, all that stuff.
So if someone was looking at running at city council, because you mentioned you went back 2 years and read all kinds of reports and looked at what the agendas had been and things like that, what would you suggest is the best way for someone who's thinking about running for city council to inform themselves?
Well, you know, I have been, I'm pretty adamant, and it's everyone can do their own thing, is talk to someone who's been there before. Like, whether it's an incumbent or whether it's someone who's not on council anymore or whatever, just try and talk to someone who's been there before, and they might have some, you know, ability to fill you in on the job, the role, the challenges, different things like that. So I hope that people kind of take the opportunity to reach out. You can reach out to me. I'm going to be, you know, totally unbiased. Maybe one of these guys running again, they'll give you bad information to try and throw you off their scent. I don't know. But I'll shoot straight with you if anybody reaches out to me. So I'm looking forward to maybe getting a phone call or two, but you don't have to do all that reading. Like, ideally, you have an idea of what's going on, so that when you're asked a question about it through the election process, you can be informed enough to have some understanding of how things work. I'm not trying to be rude when I say this, but in the past at these forums and things, the number of people who don't know the difference between what a provincial responsibility and municipal responsibility is amazes me. It really does. Thank you, Mr. Paul Terrio, for teaching me these things when I was in school, because, you know, it's pretty important to know some of those basics. But I would say inform yourself as much as possible, because then when you get on there, you can hit the ground running. And there's going to be an orientation process that you do with the administration and your new council. But at the same time, try not to make your life harder than it has to be to cram, you know, 600 pages worth of information into your head all at once. Why not start taking some time to figure out what's going on now? So, yeah, I hopefully people are somewhat informed, but you don't have to know, I don't know, like how many meters of water or pipe need to be replaced in the latest stormwater master plan. Like, that's excessive. Like, I read the document back when I was running before, but I was trying to understand them, and I found out pretty quickly you don't need to understand them in too much detail. You need to understand the 10,000-foot view.
What do you think of some of these groups that kind of get together and say, we're going to elect this person as a group? We're gonna have our own individual election in this group, and that person is going to run for city council. What do you think of, like, there seems to be more and more of that, and there seems to be more and more of, you know, seeing political parties infiltrate into municipal elections. Yeah. And we're going to run a conservative candidate in this, representing the Conservatives or the NDP or something like that.
Well, like I said before, it's a team sport that recognizes individual effort. So at the end of the day, you and your council, you're going to create a vision together, a strategic vision. And that vision is going to be how you see your community in 30 years and how you're going to get to that kind of desired place in your strategic plan. And everyone's going to have potentially some different ideas of how to get to that desired place. So there is, going to be varying, opinions and disagreements as you move along from that point on. It's the challenge is
for the groups. It feels like maybe they're coming in with an agenda.
Well, yeah,
and answering to the group.
Well, that's the thing. So what I was going to say is, at the end of the day, every individual on council is representing the whole community, and the good of the community in the long term. So I don't know how you could, if you feel like you are, if you're in a position where you have maybe unpopular views and only 5% of the population kind of agrees with you, and you want to make decisions that are only going to be beholden to these 5% of the people, are you truly representing your community, or are you just representing those 5%? And is that right? I would say no. I don't think it's right to represent a very small group of people. I think that you have to represent the whole community and do what's best for all of them.
And as far as, can you see a time where political parties are running in municipalities? And would that be a good thing?
Well, often, it's the conversation in Alberta, right? Like they've passed legislation so that they're going to start with Calgary and Edmonton or something along those lines to be able to do that. No, I don't think it's a good thing. I like that local decisions are made based on local information and local people and all that other stuff. So there's no outside influence at all telling you the way you should look at the world or the way you should go or the direction. Like outside influence outside of your community straight up just doesn't exist. So this idea of a political party where it might be, well, we went to convention and our official policy on this, on these issues are we're going to vote in this direction. And now are you beholden to that party to have to vote in a certain way on behalf of your own municipality? That's not right. You also see, municipalities all over the province that go toxic. And when I say toxic, I mean like you get some people who are rogue or they always have 4-3 votes, and basically whoever's in power is the one who gets their agenda through, and then the other three people would be basically just hanging out for their term, and that's not good government either. So I think municipal government's got it right by keeping political parties out and by keeping decisions local based on local information and expert opinions that are very specific to our circumstance. Bringing in outside influence is no good. Do I think Saskatchewan might do it at some point? Well, if Alberta continues down that path and pulls the trigger and does it for all municipalities, I would not be surprised to see Saskatchewan try it at the big cities first and then move it down to the other ones. I hope they don't, but it's possible. Yeah.
Is there anything, Jonathan, I'm forgetting to ask that you wanted people to know before we let you go?
Yeah. The one thing I just wanted to say is, I may have sounded like through this interview, because we talked about some challenging topics and things like that, that maybe I wasn't happy about it. I have to tell you, this is the most rewarding experience of my life, professionally and as a member of the community. Has developed me into something that is different than it was before, and I'm incredibly proud of the things that I've been able to be a part of, as well as just the things that I've gotten to witness, and like the amount of effort and things that are put out by other members of council and seeing I don't think there's a mayor in our history who's gotten more money for our community than this one, and being part of trying to help him advocate for some of those things I think is important. And the people that we've worked with, I feel so fortunate to have been able to have done that, and I'm incredibly thankful to the community for allowing me to serve them for 8 years. That doesn't mean it's the end. That means it's the end for now. I don't know what it looks like in 12 years when all my kids are out of the house. I'm only going to be...
You're going to pull Garth Brooks, are you?
Well, I'm only going to be 50.
Yeah.
No, I'm only going to be 48. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. So there's always a potential of coming back into a role like this. But I'm really thankful to have been able to do it. And I'm thankful for sitting down with you today. And yeah, it's been a blast. It's come with its challenges, but I'm happy I did it. And I hope that there's good quality people who step up to the plate to take over the mantle and do other good things. One last thing I do want to add, sorry if you're almost done, is I am still going to be doing some stuff because I've been promoted, if you will. Circumstances led to the board chair position at the Vic Juba Community Services or Community Theatre. Vic Juba Community Theatre came up, so I'm actually the board chair now, and I will be continuing on with that role after my time on council's done. So expect to still see me here and there as I continue on with that role. I'll still let Jen have the spotlight on most things, but I'm going to continue to serve the community in different ways. So that I can make sure that it stays the great place that it already is.
Some big shoes to fill with Gwen Motram's shoes there.
Yeah, well, Gwen, she's still around, and we still get to run into her early and often through the different groups that she's involved with. So there's definitely some challenges that we have to work our way through, but we're so excited for the shows and everything coming up this year. There's lots of fun stuff happening, and we're looking at the long term of continuing to make it just like, the best little theater you can have, and to provide that quality entertainment for families in Lloydminster.
Thanks, John.
Awesome. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. So we are here at the long weekend, but we're going to be back after the long weekend. And Focus Vermilion and the Vermilion and District Housing Foundation are hosting their second annual Vermilion Street Jamboree on next Friday, September the 6th, on Main Street in Vermilion. So Brittany and Dawn, we're going to join us on Tuesday here. And the Marsden Fall Street Festival is next Saturday. Tracy Kurtz will join us next week as well. And we've got a lot more fun stuff planned for you as well during and with those shows, and with some shows to come. So enjoy the long weekend and the Labor Day classics that come with it, particularly the Sunday game between the Riders and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And go Riders, and we'll talk to you again next week.